Henry V had achieved what generations of English kings could only dream of. He had destroyed a French army at Agincourt, conquered Normandy, entered Paris, and been recognized as heir to the French throne. Yet Henry would never wear that crown. In 1421, with victory apparently within reach, England's warrior king began what would become his final campaign. And ahead of him stood Meaux. The transformation had been astonishing. Only 6 years earlier, Henry had invaded France with uncertain prospects. Now the Treaty of Troyes recognized him as heir and regent of France, while his marriage to Catherine of Valois united him with the French royal dynasty. But the treaty had not ended the war. The Dauphin Charles rejected his disinheritance, and much of France still recognized him, not Henry, as the kingdom's rightful future. Two rival visions of France were now preparing to collide. Then came devastating news. On the 22nd of March 1421, Henry's brother Thomas, Duke of Clarence, had attacked a Franco-Scottish army at Baugé without waiting for his full force. Clarence was killed, and the English suffered a serious defeat. For the enemies of England, Baugé proved Henry's armies were not invincible. When the news reached Henry, grief became determination. His brother was dead, but the war would not be surrendered. Henry would return to France himself. In June 1421, Henry crossed the Channel again with fresh troops. This was no ceremonial journey. His purpose was to restore English military authority and destroy resistance around Paris. English commanders gathered around their king as maps were opened. France must see that Baugé had changed nothing. The campaign would continue. Across the Loire, the Dauphin Charles watched Henry's return. He was young, politically vulnerable, and excluded from succession by the Treaty of Troyes. But he was far from defeated. Armagnac supporters continued to recognize him. Scottish soldiers strengthened his armies, and every fortress resisting the Anglo-Burgundian alliance forced Henry to spend more men, money, and time. The struggle for France had become a war of endurance. Henry campaigned around Paris before turning toward one of the region's most troublesome strongholds, Meaux. Situated on the River Marne east of Paris, the fortified town threatened communications and resisted Anglo-Burgundian authority. Its strongest position was the heavily defended Marche, protected by water and formidable fortifications. If Henry wanted secure control around Paris, Meaux could not simply be ignored. In October 1421, Henry began the siege. English troops established fortified positions around Meaux. Roads were guarded, supplies were controlled. Siege works crept toward the defenses. Henry had mastered this method at Harfleur, Rouen, and across Normandy. Isolation, pressure, patience. Exeter and the king inspected the works personally. There would be no reckless assault. Meaux would be enclosed until resistance became impossible. But Henry had underestimated how long that would take. Weeks became months. Autumn disappeared beneath winter rain, mud, and freezing temperatures. Inside Meaux, supplies diminished. Outside, the besiegers suffered too. Maintaining thousands of men through winter demanded an enormous logistical effort. Food, arrows, timber, horses, and equipment had to arrive continuously. Henry refused to leave. Meaux would fall. Henry's reputation depended partly upon sharing the hardships of campaign life. He inspected defenses, consulted engineers, and maintained discipline as the siege dragged onward. The winter was exhausting the army. The king could delegate more of the burden. But Henry's answer was characteristic. If his soldiers endured the siege, their king would endure it beside them. There was no Agincourt at Meaux. No single afternoon would decide the outcome. Instead, the struggle became precisely the kind of warfare that dominated the 100 Years' War far more often than famous battles did. Engineering, blockade. By spring 1422, the balance finally shifted. After months of isolation, the defenders' position had become increasingly desperate. The town itself fell first, but resistance continued within the stronger Marche. Henry tightened the pressure. They had endured winter for this moment. The fortress would not be allowed to escape now. The siege entered its final phase. In May 1422, after roughly 7 months, resistance finally ended. The Marche surrendered. Henry had won. Meaux was brought under Anglo-Burgundian control, strengthening the position around Paris. For the king's supporters, it was another demonstration of the relentless determination that had carried him from Agincourt to Rouen and Paris. But the victory had come at a terrible cost in time and endurance, and Henry himself was no longer well. During the campaigning that followed, Henry's health deteriorated. Contemporary accounts ultimately describe a serious illness, commonly identified as dysentery. The warrior king who had survived arrows, sieges, winter campaigns, and years of warfare now faced something armor could not stop. Exeter and Henry's physicians urged rest. The king's strength was failing. He could no longer campaign as though nothing had changed. But events in France would not wait for him. When further campaigning was required, Henry could no longer personally lead as he once had. Command increasingly fell to men around him. His brother John, Duke of Bedford, remained one of the pillars of English power in France. The empire Henry had built now depended upon whether others could preserve it. For the first time, England's conquest was beginning to move without the conqueror. The irony was extraordinary. Henry was closer to achieving his dynastic ambition than ever before. Charles VI was still alive. Under the Treaty of Troyes, when the French king died, Henry was supposed to inherit the crown of France. All Henry needed was time. But time, the weapon he had used so effectively against Meaux, was now turning against him. France might yet become Henry's kingdom, but only if Henry lived long enough to inherit it. Meaux had fallen. Henry V had once again achieved his military objective. Yet this victory felt different. There was no Agincourt celebration, no triumphant entry into Rouen, no magnificent procession through Paris. The king was exhausted, increasingly ill, and running out of time. Within months, Henry IV, the conqueror of Normandy and heir to France, would be dead at only 35. And the enormous empire he had created would pass to a child. Henry had spent his life defeating armies, capturing fortresses, and bending kingdoms to his will. But his final enemy could not be besieged. On the 31st of August, 1422, at Vincennes outside Paris, Henry V's extraordinary career reached its end. He had conquered almost everything he sought, except the time needed to become King of France.